Hi, I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery in Indianapolis, Indiana.
And I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, located in Southgate, Kentucky.
And welcome to Wheel Talk.
Hey guys, we've loved answering all of your questions so far. If you'd like to hear your question on the podcast, please send them to us on Instagram at Wheel Talk Podcast or by email to wheeltalkpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks. Did you start it on time?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I did.
I don't have to worry about you. I feel like you always start on time. I'm the one that's slacking. But
That's true. I do because I'm perfect.
perfectly imperfect, Becca.
Perfectly imperfect. Oh, hi, Ryan.
Hi, Becca.
We're live.
We are.
Live.
We need to cut. I was thinking about cutting snippets of that when we do our best of. It'll just be the little segments when we're saying we're live. It'll start and it'll just be like 7 times that we said that at the beginning.
That'd be fun. How are you today? How was today?
I'm doing all right. Got into studio, did a little bit of throwing. I'm back into throwing more regularly now. And yeah, my kiln fired today, glaze kiln.
Oh,
Hopefully
good.
get that out before the weekend is up because I got a show on Saturday and Sunday in Louisville.
Woo!
So I'll be headed there actually tomorrow night. So hopefully I can unload it before I head out. So I actually had a... what's that?
Is Rachel going with you to this one?
Yeah. We're
Does
driving
she have to
separate
drive
because...
separately?
Yeah, because there's like no space. Yeah, so there's... well, she went with me this weekend. She's went to the last 2 or 3 shows, but it's like fucking packed in there. Like she can't move.
Oh, yeah.
And this one's a 2-day show, so I'm like, you definitely got to drive separate because I got to give you a couple extra bins. Like I can't be running out of stuff.
Right.
Just in case, like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's better to
Well,
be
tell your mom
overconfident
hi.
with what you're gonna sell than underestimate, and then you're like, shit, I should have brought like 15 more spoon rests or something. You know?
Right? Damn it.
So I wanted to tell you I met with to talk about some tax stuff yesterday with a tax consultant person, a CPA.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of fun. It was basically like asking them, hey, I owed a bunch of money in taxes. How do I help that? And stuff like that. But
Do you feel like it was eventful? Like, did you learn something?
yeah, I did. I learned that I'm very detailed with my bookkeeping, but also like there are things that I could improve on to get
Like your
more granular.
like your expenses?
Yeah, like the way that I'm expensing like Etsy stuff and some of that kind of items, and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that I'm like documenting that appropriately, because some of it was
Yeah.
like what do you consider shipping? I like there's different categories on the itemized
Yeah.
thing on your Schedule C or whatever, and it
Yeah.
says like expenses, and I just categorize shipping as office expenses because I'm like that kind of falls under office expenses. And she was like, no, it's better to like label this in the other category and just line item it as shipping. And because it looks weird when it just says office expenses $7,000. They're like, whoa, you need to break that out.
Why?
I'm like, oh, I thought it was better to like put it in the categories that they set. So,
No, I mean, like, it's good to put it in the categories, but it is, like, if you do have a really large one, it's better to put it in other, because they look at that, and they're like, oh, that makes sense.
yeah. So I'm going to improve stuff like that. And I updated how I log all of my information. So I like broke out all
Yeah.
the different Etsy fees, and so I can categorize them, as well as like shipping is in its own bucket, and like show fees are in their own thing, and application fees. And so I can categorize it better when I get to the end of the year. So yeah,
Cool.
it was pretty
Don't
eventful.
over categorize it, though.
No, I actually removed some stuff because I
Good,
kind of
good.
had duplications in my two like expenses and fees. Like some of it was duplicated categories, and I don't really need those because some of them only fall under expenses and some of them only fall under like fees and stuff. So
Yeah.
hopefully it's
Oh.
not too much, but we'll see.
Yeah. I think when I was doing it also, it was important to separate cost of goods sold to cost of goods, like general expenses not being used. You know, like, oh, I bought something on Amazon that I use in the studio versus I bought clay and I need to expense that. And so those are cost of goods sold.
Yeah.
COGS. And that is like, hey, well, when you get into like inventory towards the end of the year and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, she was talking about that, and I was like, that just sounds like so much work to say. Like, you still have this inventory batch of work that all you can log is the cost of materials it costs to make that item.
It is a fucking pain in the ass.
And I'm like,
I remember,
why doesn't it just cancel out? Because you just buy all the clay materials, all the glaze materials. Like, you already pay for that up front. Why would you report that when you sell it rather than just putting that as an expense?
Oh God, it's such a pain in the ass.
So you've done it that way? With the on-hand inventory?
Kind of like,
how the hell do you do that?
No. Okay, so what I always do every year is I try to get down to as zero as possible. Like, I try and sell as much shit during Christmas time, so I don't have anything on my shelves to sell. That's my goal. And so it's like, it kind of like evens out, and I've never really had to do it. But
I mean, she was making it sound like you wouldn't actually line item that expense until you sold the thing. And I was like, but I'm paying for clay in like May.
That's how it's supposed to work. That's how it's supposed to work, and it's absolutely ridiculous and super hard to do in ceramics because you have glazes, you have glazed material, you have clays, you like all these different things. I remember I was in a workshop once, and I think it was actually Sean from Forest Ceramic Co., and he was like, "How the fuck are we supposed to do that?" It's like, this is, and I'm like, yeah.
You should be like, can you come to my studio for like a day and like look at what I got and tell me how you would realistically do that without just quitting my job and dedicating myself to doing this?
Yeah, right. I'm like, what the fuck? And I think that it generally came down to the sense of like, just don't. Just don't. Just don't do it.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
that was generally the consensus.
I was just like, that just sounds like a lot of work to me. I don't really want to do that.
Like, I'll take the penalty, thanks. Yeah, it's a lot. It's just a lot. Yeah.
Too much.
Too much.
Way too much.
Yeah.
So that was my day and yesterday. What about you?
You're
back.
I just got back from vacation, holiday. I like saying holiday. You know, I've been watching.
Holiday, like when you're in other countries and they're like, "I'm going on holiday."
Yeah, I like saying that. I'm going on holiday. So I just got back from vacation. I went to Washington and California, and whilst in California, my friend Jen, who's going to listen to this because she listens to every one of our things. I think she's the only non-Potter other than your mother that listens to our podcast. Anyway, my friend Jen was watching Formula One, and so then they were explaining everything to me. Like, they're really good at explaining and teaching.
Becca's now a hardcore fan.
So like they're explaining everything and blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh, this is so fascinating. And I've like watched them before, but I've never really, gotten into it. And then I started watching Formula One, Drive to Survive on Netflix, and I'm almost done. I'm almost done with season 3. And I've decided that Formula One race car drivers are like a sorority of women, but men. And
because there's only 20 of them?
Yeah, I guess, but they're like super catty, and they're like super into, like, okay, sororities, okay, this is comma, okay, they're like a sorority, but then comma, this is separate. They're so into themselves, and they're like, I'm the best driver there, I'm the best. And I'm like,
you're like, there's 20 of you, somebody has to be at the bottom, you're not all the best.
Yeah, and also it's like you're the best of what you're doing, and then also, oh no, I'm gonna sneeze. Okay. Oh no.
I think a lot of that they do it for entertainment, though. They're the storylines and the drama and the back. Like, you don't get any of that if you just watch the racing, right?
So true. So true. But, like, also, the media is so fucking brutal. They're like, so, you lost that race. What went wrong? Do you think your last race was terrible because of this, too?
I
And, like,
love their media conferences when they're talking to them, because I'm like, they're not beating around the bush here. They're just fucking
no,
going
they're
at them.
so fucking brutal. They're like, they're just so brutal. And so anyway, I'm into that now, and now I'm like trying to figure out shit and that stuff. Okay, I have a funny story about today though. I went to the grocery store, and I've decided to get into yogurt, to eating yogurt. I haven't eaten yogurt for probably 7 years because in the past it's given me heartburn like every single time that I've eaten it. Like ever since I
ate yogurt today.
Younger. And so, but I love yogurt. And then I had yogurt at Val's house, and so it was like fine-ish. So anyway, I bought plain Greek yogurt, and I was like, oh, I'll just mix it with the fruit that I have in my freezer and like honey instead of buying the already fruited yogurt.
Right.
Because it might have less sugar in it, and so on and so forth. And so I got 2 things of Greek yogurt, and one of them was open and contaminated, so I had to dump that out, and I was so upset.
That's gross.
So now I know I have to look at my Greek yogurt like I look at my eggs, and
take the lid off, make sure the aluminum is sealed.
Yes, and then I put all the stuff in the blender, and I put it in the blender, and it came out, and it's like so thin, it's like soup. And I was like, why?
Wouldn't it say thick though? Why would it get soupy?
I think it got soupy because the berries are frozen.
Oh, so there's a lot of moisture in them already.
There might be a lot of moisture in them, and so it got soupy. So I put it in the freezer, and then I like put like a shit ton of granola in it.
So now you'll have frozen yogurt.
Yeah, and so it was good though. It was like eating cold soup. So that's that. That pretty much sums up my day.
Nice. Yeah, I can't eat
Drive
the plain
to survive
Greek
in
yogurt. That
soup.
stuff is too tart or something. I think it's tart, right? If it's plain, it's like really tart.
It's super tart and like sour. And so, but I put like a little honey in and then some strawberries, and it was really good. It tasted great.
I like the strawberry cheesecake kind.
Of course you do.
It's like, I can't remember the brand, but it's probably like Dannon strawberry cheesecake or something
Probably.
like that.
It's probably the
good.
cheapest one.
No, Rachel buys it, so it's like name brand.
Okay, whatever.
It is.
Whatever, Ryan.
It is. I don't get it. But I eat it. It's good.
There you go. Okay, what are we going to talk about? Oh, wait, no, what are we doing?
We're going to do a review. So I'm going to
Okay.
read a review from Bee's Tone, 5-star, Def a Fave. After 5 months, I find myself looking forward to each show. Episode 37 about kiln venting was hilarious. Listening to Becca boss Ryan around about getting a new kiln. I agree with her, by the way. I adore how they just say it like it is. Their friendship chemistry is so fun and engaging. Becca's episode about depression was fantastic. Just matter of fact and honest. It's pretty special in the world of podcasting, not just the Wheel Talk world. So glad they're contributing something unique and valuable to the small group of pottery podcasts.
Hooray! I thought we already read that one, but...
I don't know if we did or not, but it caught my eye because I actually listened to the kiln venting episode last night when I was re-listening to stuff for the best of.
What is it? Was it as funny as I remember it being?
It was fucking hilarious. I mean, I took notes of so we've talked about this, but we're going to do a best of episode, hopefully for our 100th, or it'll be probably a couple episodes. But I took like 10 snippets from that episode of like we could snip. Like, it's going to be good.
I think like at one point I was like, what did I yell at you?
You did. I just labeled that note as kiln bickering. It was
Kiln
5 minutes
bickering.
long.
I think I was
You're
like, buy a
basically
new
like you're
fucking
being.
kiln.
You're basically kind of like you're stubborn. Like, why are you fighting it? And I just kept explaining myself away of like. But I like adjust and figure it out. But you're like, whatever, just whatever.
Okay, and then we're gonna do one more thing.
Yes, we're gonna do a. What would you do if?
What? We need a little tune for what would you do if? What would you do if? Like da 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 da. What would you do if?
All right. Let's see. Okay, this one should be pretty applicable for people to relate to. What would you do if your bisque pot falls into your bucket of glaze? So let's say you're like dipping it with tongs and you drop it in there. What do you do and how do you like fix it, I guess?
Okay, well it depends. It depends on how far it goes down, how thick your glaze is. But I'm
assuming you got like tongs and they fall off the tongs and they just fall in the bucket.
Yeah, which happens all the time, or it does to me. Well, first obviously expletive, fuck, and then you reach into the bucket with your hand, find the pot, pull it out.
Yep.
If it's a stable glaze, maybe keep it. If it's not, I just toss it in the water bucket and wash it off.
Do you keep a water bucket on the side that you only rinse glaze off with and you clean your tools with? So you would let all that excess glaze like sit in the bottom of that bucket that you make the mystery glaze out of?
Reuse that. Yeah, I reuse that glaze into a slop glaze.
Does it benefit at all to let the pot dry completely versus just putting it right in the water bucket? I would assume it probably comes off easier if it's already wet, right?
You know what? It does come off a little bit easier when it's wet. And if I know I'm going to glaze it back in that color again, I don't like try to get all of it off. Like I'll get most of it off, but like especially if it's a mug around the handle, I don't really worry about it. But yeah, I let it dry for like a week.
Yeah, I would definitely. I've tried to wipe stuff off and glaze it within like the next day or later that day. Or if you're cleaning your pots off with water, like I don't even glaze those the same day. If I were to wipe bisqueware off or something like that, like I wait at least 24 hours before I glaze it.
Yeah, like people rinse them off in the sink, and you would have to wait like a week to glaze them after rinsing them off in the sink.
Maybe in Washington with the humidity, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess.
But I usually wait a day. But yeah, I would let it dry and probably like if I had a kiln firing, I'd probably like sit it on top of a kiln or near a kiln so that it dries like thoroughly before I glaze it again. Yeah,
I'd put them in the oven before if I needed to glaze them that day.
Nice.
Just put them in a low heat in the oven. Toaster oven. Yeah. What would you do? Well, we kind of talked about what would you do, but what would you do?
I would grab it out quickly. I think I've done both ways. I've cleaned it off when it was wet and when it's dry. Because it's just a mess everywhere, right? So it's like, you just put it up on the counter and it's everywhere. I think I've like taken it over to the sink and like rinsed it off while it's wet. And then you just take a sponge, like a big sponge to it and just scrub it.
Yeah. When I was at Bruning, they used to make you like wait till it was dry and scrape it off.
Yeah, that sounds like way more work and more dust.
Yeah. Agreed.
The inside, I guess, would be harder to clean. I'm thinking of like a mug, but
yeah,
because you can't. It's hard to like get the stuff all the way down in there to scrub it out, but
totally.
Putting it in the rinse bucket's a good idea, though. I can see that, like sponge rinse bucket, just rinse it off, and then all the glaze doesn't get wasted because it's in your mystery glaze now.
Right, unless you have 12 buckets of mystery glaze, then you know.
Did you have 12 buckets at your studio that you had rinse bucket? Oh, because of all the students? But why did you need 12 buckets?
No. That's how much glaze came out of the rinse bucket.
Oh my gosh. Wait, 12 buckets of mystery glaze after the fact? Or 12 rinse buckets that you just kept around the studio?
No, 12 buckets of mystery glaze.
Oh my gosh. You weren't using
Well,
enough.
60
I have like 4
gallons.
gallons maybe.
60 gallons. It was my like least popular color. It's Italian. And personally, I think it's one of my best colors. The Italian gray. It was like super dark blue.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
So your mystery was close to that, or that is the mystery glaze?
The mystery glaze is a super dark blue. Or it was, yeah. And then it was in this trash can at the end of the way. And like none of the students would ever use it. Like it was in a big trash can. I would empty out the water bucket. And then I would put it into the big trash can. And then we separated the trash can out into 5-gallon buckets when we were going to sell the studio. And I, like, literally couldn't give it away. I was like, please, somebody take this glaze.
Free glaze. Who wants it?
So, yeah.
Limited edition.
Yeah, exactly. So, thankfully, I finally got rid of most of it. I think we might have dumped a few of them, though.
Yeah. I cherish it. Like, I'm trying not to... I'm just hoping that each time that I make a new mystery glaze that it's close to what I already have. Which it should be if I'm using all the same glazes. It's just...
Right.
The proportions of what I'm glazing may change it a little bit, but...
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Onward. What are we talking about today?
Upward. Okay. Are we ready?
I'm ready.
This question comes from our number one questionnaire, Aletha Bean. Okay. Hey, friends. Throwing a suggestion out there for a topic. I know you've talked on it before, but I'd love to hear more of your insight and personal views on plagiarism versus inspiration. My teacher calls it Claygiarism, which I think is hilarious. With a smiley face with the drip coming down. How do you stay inspired without copying or appropriating? How do you make sure you're not being influenced too heavily by trends and losing your own vision? Becca, I know this is something you're deep diving into right now, exploring the elements of your new line and that spur passion. So I'm especially interested in your mindset during the shift in your vision. Love them, by the way. Also, how would you feel deal with it when someone rips off your work? Does it anger you? Does it flatter you? What steps do you take if you came across something that was obviously copied? Has this happened before? If so, what was the product and how did you find it? Has anyone ever accused either of you of overstepping with their ideas? That's a lot. That's a lot to unpack.
That's a mouthful.
I feel like I'm going to separate this out into little things.
First off, Aletha, thanks for the questions all the time.
We
appreciate all of them.
We love them.
She's a good audience member. Good contributor.
Yes. MVQ, Most Valuable Questionnaire.
Nice. All right, so where do we start here?
Let's start with our personal views on plagiarism versus inspiration. Like as a whole.
What's the definition of plagiarism? Maybe that's a good.
Ooh.
Because I wanna see the difference between the two. I mean, I can go by like what I think it is, but plagiarism, noun, the practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as one's own. Okay.
Inspiration, the process of being mentally stimulated to do or feel something, especially to do something creative.
So it sounds to me the inspiration sounds like a nugget to like motivate.
Yeah.
Rather than plagiarism is like it's more about duplicating and replicating something that you see.
Mhm. Yes.
So that's how I would distinguish it. I would like if you're going for the plagiarism route, like I feel like you're looking at something, you're trying to break it down into its elements of how it was constructed, how you can like get all the different angles and understand how it was put together and like the process of how it came to be, and you're trying to do the same thing, right?
Yeah. I think that, oh God, I feel like this topic is either going to be really short or really, really long. I think it's interesting because we've been talking as a whole, I think, in the ceramics community about like inspiration versus plagiarism for such a long time, you know?
What's such a long time? Like decades? Longer?
I'd say decades, I think.
Since people are, making stuff from historical, I mean, you were talking about reading books about like appropriating stuff and.
Oh yeah,
like,
I mean, like
that
appropriation has been happening for years, like since the dawn of time, as far as ceramics is concerned. But as far as like, I think modern ceramics, like Instagram has really spurred that like Instagram, Tumblr, when it was a thing, has really like spurred that the discussion even more. Like, there's so many people with the exact same style on Instagram, and is somebody copying, or is it their own idea, or is it just a general style?
Yeah, or a trend, or like
or a trend, or
I mean, we've said historically, like there's nothing that's, I don't know if it's form, but like we're doing the same thing that somebody has done before.
Oh yeah.
There's only so many mugs that you can make and shapes of a mug that you can make, and
right,
glazes you can use, and
yeah, and it was funny. You remember when we were doing that? We were in St. George, Utah, and we were doing the podcast, and I was like, Ryan, you stole my style. And Ryan Reich was like, what are you talking about? And I was totally kidding, because like everybody does throw rings, like that's not like
right.
something that is copywritten per se. But yeah, I think that there has to be some like give and take of what is, what is just a natural thing that happens in ceramics versus like something.
I feel like
specific.
So much of that is just a common space. Like that's the collective space.
Yeah.
That is like shared. Like swirl lines and pots of.
Yes.
Swirly pots. Like,
that's
okay. How do you make it your own? Your glazes differentiate it. How you finish the bottoms. Like how your handle looks on it. Like those things can differ. But the general, like, overarching, like, hey, it's a swirly pot.
Totally. Like, I would say, I'm going to say this. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to say this. So I would say that John the Potter's current swirly mug, the one that wides out a little bit, that if you looked at my pieces 4 years ago, I would, and saw, like, if you took the glazes off, you would not be able to tell the difference between John the Potter's swirly mug and my swirly mug. The only difference is the glazes. The handle might be a smidge different, but that's just because that's like the progression of the swirls, like he likes that style where it goes out, and I do too. And then mine kind of changed after time, but like our
and
styles.
Also is like it's fun to make them too, and
oh my
it's
God,
like
it's so fun.
You get a response from customers because customers love them. They like to hold them. Like,
yeah,
it's just a sweet spot of like fun to make. They're each unique as well because the swirls aren't exactly the same on every single one. I mean, they could look pretty close, but
right.
I just think it's a good sweet spot of like if you like to make it. I mean, there's a demand out there for it because people love to buy it. So.
Right.
It's not that you're copying somebody because you're doing it. It's just.
Yeah, and I mean, like, would I ever get mad at John for having that style? Like, absolutely not. You know, like that's something that I'm positive he's never seen my stuff from years ago. So, you know, like it's just like that's just the way it is, and that's like the way that these things work. This evolution, like your mind sees something, and it may come to you the next week, but it may come to you 4 years from now. This like type of swirl or this type of style that is within a pot.
And that's
now,
not to say that your pieces are the only ones that he saw in the past that influenced him to do it or something. It's like
right.
he could have just done it on something one day from a variety of influences.
Yeah. And I mean, like, he probably never saw my pieces. Like,
right.
It just happened to be that we made the exact same style. And that's okay. Yeah. I think that what I do think is that with, like, the introduction of, like, ribs and stuff like that have certain angles and stuff, it does create a lot more, not creativity, but, like, you have to, ingenuity, you know? You have to, like, figure out how to make it your own within using the same, like, style as somebody else, which is kind of cool.
But that was kind of like what Link was talking about when we interviewed her. She doesn't want to have a rib that you have a profile of a pot. You stick it up next to it, and the piece is going to conform to exactly what that shape is.
Right. But some people do, and that's fine. Completely fine. You know? Yeah. I think that, but I think where we get into, like, the trick, like, the muddy water is when, okay, well, there's two things, like, students specifically who are copying artists to literally learn techniques. That, I think, is an extremely useful tool to learn techniques. The caveat is when if you sell those pieces. That's the issue, I think.
Yeah. I think selling it is that it's that line of, hey, like, you got that from somewhere and you were directly trying to replicate that technique.
Yeah.
With the same, I mean, would you say the same if it's like, it happens to be an Elan transfer, but it's a different transfer, but it's still like a transfer on a mug, but it's different from the exact one. I don't know, I mean, does the mug shape have to match what somebody else does, and the handle has to match for it to be like, okay, you're selling something with a transfer that matches other people's?
I don't know.
Or is the transfer just a layer, and there's still, I mean, I think there's still form that goes into it. There's still, do you put handles on it? Do you have attachments? Are there other parts to it?
Right.
The glaze obviously has a factor, so.
Well, I think that when you buy a transfer like that, you're buying it with the understanding that other people have that transfer. And not only that, when Leanne sells those transfers, she's selling them with the understanding, knowing that people are going to be using them, you know?
Right.
So I feel like that's like this weird understanding that you have to have when you buy those things, you know? It's like you're not going to have a completely individual piece when using them. Now, you can use them creatively and make it your own, but other people will have that transfer. And you have to be, and that has to be understood and be okay with everybody around the board.
Yeah. Same with, like, there's templates for GR forms. Like, there's a number of them that they make. How do you make those unique to you? Do you put a certain texture on the slab that you're going to put on it? Do you use, like, a specific MKM rolling tool that's going to give you a specific texture that you drape over it? Or is there a unique way that you texture it that makes it your own? Because the shape is going to be the same as whoever else bought that, you know, that GR form.
Yeah. Totally. What do you think?
About what specifically? Like what the line is? I think the selling point is a good delineator of, like, hey, you need to actually think about where that came from. And you know, I've had students that have, like, done my techniques, but I also taught them that technique in a class, so it's like,
yeah,
if they do it later in that class and I see it going onto a shelf to go into a kiln, it's like, yeah, I taught them that technique, but also, like, I didn't own the technique. I didn't invent sgraffito. Like, you paint stuff
Right.
on and you carve it. Like, hey, I'm sure there's somebody else out there that carves like the way I carve that has historically done it that way. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not the first person to do that. I mean, sgraffito's been around a lot longer than I've been making, so. But yeah, I think the selling line is a big part that you need to be considering.
Yeah.
What are the like thing? I feel like the more individualized and the more design heavy like your pieces are, the more you're getting into that realm of like, is it being plagiarized or is it not? Because like we said historically, like I make basic bitch pots. Like I'm probably plagiarizing somebody that's historically made it, and somebody's probably plagiarizing me. But also, it's like it's common. Like I'm in the common space with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm
same
making
with me.
commoner pots that anybody can make.
Same with me up until recently. Like, obviously, I have like a new style. I've never seen anybody do exactly what I do with my pots. Not that they couldn't.
Would
Like,
you feel weird if somebody saw somebody else making what you were making and they were like, "Hey, Becca, this person has been making this for like 3 years."
oh, for 3 years? Like, if I was doing it, then
If they saw it now and they were like, "Hey, Becca, you said you didn't see anybody. I've seen this person over here that's making it."
oh yeah, you should let me
Would you
know.
feel like you have to steer your stuff away?
I'd probably talk to them. I'd probably like reach out to them, and I think that my technique is pretty specific, so I don't know if anybody has what I'm doing, down to the core, essentially. But yeah, like on the other end, if somebody was doing something that was similar, I've always I've always kind of like had the opinion of like, if somebody's copying you, make yours better. like
Yeah.
like
Is
I
it a
don't
way
know.
to push you forward, or is it just the small refinement? Is it a way to push you to like, okay, move on from that?
No, I think it's more of like a small refinement. Yeah. But I mean, like, it all depends, right? Like, if it was somebody that had no customer base at all and they were doing it versus somebody that had a humongous customer base and they were ripping me off, like, and we're talking about other artists. We're not talking about other companies. Like, if like Abercrombie and no, not if Anthropologie ripped me off, I'd be fucking pissed.
Which is what you see. I feel
They
like
do
I
that.
see that once a year or something.
They do
You
that
see
all the
some
time.
big or not conspiracy, but you see some big story about it and it spreads through all the other ceramic artists and they're like,
Yeah.
this thing got copied from me and this company's doing this.
Yeah. I feel like Anthropologie's been the biggest culprit in that. I might be wrong, but I thought that was the case. But yeah, I'd be pissed for that. But if somebody else was doing it, I don't know if I would be pissed because I have a pretty high.
What does it benefit you to be mad about it?
I don't think it does.
I don't think being mad about it does anything for anybody. It
No.
just puts you in a negative mood. I mean, putting the
Yeah.
person on blast, like, does that? I don't know. Does it help with the dynamic of like, do you already have a customer base? Do they not? I feel
Right.
like in that aspect, you can feel like you're just shitting on somebody.
Yeah. Okay, so I will say this. I had a friend, an acquaintance that well, technically I had two acquaintances that got into it a little bit because they were in the same proximity location wise and they were doing art in a way that was community based essentially, so like teaching classes and stuff. And one of them was copying another person and it got into like a legal battle because it was these
So
people.
they were in the same space, and one of them was copying the other person
The
in
same
the same
town.
space.
Same town.
Okay.
And they were like direct copies and it got pretty gnarly and like So I think you do have to be careful, but also like it got to a point where like the first person was like, "Hey, yo, it's fine. Just could you stop doing it?" And then she didn't. She didn't stop, and so but it like this was these two people's livelihoods, both of them, and so it became kind of like
Yeah. And then you get to the whole, like, who did it first, and do you have documentation of who did it first, and, like, do you have a claim to it?
Right, and is it copywritten? Like,
it's kind of up
blah,
to somebody
like,
to,
yeah.
like, be the bigger person, like, say, okay, I'm going to stop doing this because I don't know that it's worth the aggravation, or...
Right. Totally. So, yeah, it can get to that kind of point, and I would understand why somebody would get to a point where it'd have to be legal, especially if it was somebody's livelihood, you know?
Yeah. I guess I'm thinking of the more... I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of the more distant part of it, where we're in the Instagram land and there's so many things shared that somebody could copy exactly what you're doing if you share enough of the process of how it's done.
Yeah. That's a lot of the reason why a lot of people don't share the process, which is super sad, because people will go and they'll just take it and they'll start to get traction and try to do their own thing, and they're directly
I feel like that's being too much in the scarcity mindset, that you're the negative that somebody might copy you. But I guess it depends on how... Maybe it's because I make basic bitch pots that I'm not as worried about that. Like, do I have a say in this because I make what everybody else can make if they're skilled in throwing,
Yeah. I mean, like, there's...
If somebody has very specific processes that are unique enough...
And very specific levels of expertise as well. Because sometimes, there's a certain level of expertise that is so insane that it would be difficult to copy it, because they're like the person I'm thinking is like Peter
Pincus. Yeah, I saw some of his molds a couple days ago and I was like, holy crap, how do you make that kind of mold?
Yeah, I'm like, I would never even try to copy him, like, ever. I would never even try. I don't think that it would be worth the money. Like, oh, that's insane.
But at that point, you're just going through all of these steps to try to understand how this intricate process works. What's the end game there?
Yeah. I don't know. We're both like I feel like we're both extremely integrity driven people, so I don't feel like we would do that intentionally to have to be like, I want to make a bunch of money off of this person's style, I don't feel like we would do that intentionally, me or you. So I'm not sure that we could say what the intention is, because we're not that type of people.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how you'd almost have to but you can't ask somebody like, hey, you have a style, you were accused of a style copying this person. Like, how did you get to that point? What was your thought process going through that? Because then they're in defensive mode and they're like...
Yeah.
And can they be honest about it? Of like, actually, I didn't even know about this person, or actually, I saw it and I really wanted to know how that worked, so
I did it, and then it caught off, and then people liked it, and then
my
I was
customers
like, oh,
wanted
I guess
it, so I felt compelled to be between, do I stop doing this entire thing, or
Yeah, I think that kind of moving into the I feel like the next kind of section of it.
Do you have any trouble with she asked about how do you stay inspired without copying or appropriating? I feel like I'm inspired or driven because I'm like, I need to make more quantity of stuff that I actually like making. Like, I don't feel like I'm in desperation for inspiration and stuff like that. I don't get to a writer's block. So that's what inspires me to keep going.
You're also like a superhuman being, okay? Like, I feel like when she asks these questions, you're like, well, I get inspired because of this, and like, Ryan, you're an extraordinary human being that gets inspired by the weirdest shit.
I get inspired because my shelf is getting emptier.
Empty. Like, that's what makes you so wonderful, is that you're so pragmatic. You're like, I get inspired if I'm not making enough money.
Or making enough work. You make it sound like I'm a greedy bastard.
You're not, though. It's just, that's the best thing about you, is just that you're like so not greedy at all, but you're so driven by numbers. And I love that. Okay. Okay, well, you get inspired by your shelves emptying. And also I feel like you get inspired by, like, the process is a lot for you, too.
The process, like actually documenting and just kind of
being in the studio, and like
yeah.
You love going down to the studio, so you don't need to be particularly inspired. You know?
I think the highs of a good sale also are good, like kicking the butt.
That's
too.
true.
Like some people are like, I'm at the end of a show and I'm done for the day. I'm taking the day off tomorrow. I'm like, all right, I'm done for the day. Let's get some dinner. Let's get a tiki drink. What can I do in the studio for 2 hours tonight?
Right.
Because I'm like motivated to check off the next thing on the list, that I'm like, okay, I made a list of 2 or 3 things I need to do now that I can capitalize on at the next show because it did well at this show.
Right.
That's where I kind of get.
You're inspired by sales. Like, and I think that's a lot of people are. Like, I totally am. Like, when I have a great show, I'm like, yes. Like, let's do this shit. You know, or when I have like a really good sale online or something like that. I think that's completely understandable. But in terms of like seeing other people's things and being inspired but not copying, I think that it's just really inspiring to see, like, I love scrolling through Instagram and like seeing the responses that people get on their posts, and like the pieces, like I love color, and I really love seeing pieces that are completely different than mine. And I feel like that's super inspirational to me, because especially pieces that I feel like I could never do, you know?
Are you thinking like wood-fired pieces, like completely unique that you can't produce and reproduce?
Yeah, something like that, but also like really organic and like really, you know, just like have this, like sometimes that people just have this like special thing, like this special touch that makes their pieces, like I'm continuously inspired by like the made in Australia stuff, the black and white stuff.
I don't know what that is.
Oh,
that's the account?
I think so. And it just looks, and I like their whole page, and yeah, made of Australia. Made of Australia.
Okay, looking it up.
Yeah, and I just like things that I would never do, and also things that I would never buy. Like I don't know why, but I just like looking at other people's stuff, and I think that that's maybe been what's really good about my I guess journey in clay, is that all the stuff that I love is not stuff that I make. And yeah. And I know you're supposed to like love what you make, and I do love what I make, and I'm kind of like dipping my toes into that now, but like the old stuff, like the flowy glazes and the wavy lines, like I don't know if I even have a pot from any other person that is flowy glazes and wavy lines other than you.
Mm-hmm. But also, are you yourself like a consumer and a big customer of pottery? I feel like you're not.
A medium.
You're very selective of what you get.
I'm very picky.
Yeah.
I'm extremely picky. But like this is a good example. When I was just in California, I went to one of my favorite ceramic artists. She's in San Pedro. It's Adewale Arts. and her name's April. And it's Adewole, I think, Arts. And she makes these like beautifully just organic rainbowy colored items, and they're just so amazing, and I love them, and I could probably make them, but not as good as her. And like that's the kind of stuff that I just love to look at.
Did you get one while you were there?
Yeah, I got 4 plates, 3 little ones and 1 big one.
Nice.
I need small plates. Yeah.
Nice. Her Instagram is that Adewole chick.
Yeah, that Adewole chick.
What's the next question you wanted to go to in this list here?
Ooh, let's talk about the appropriation stuff. Or, well, it says, Becca, I know this is something you're deep diving into right now, exploring the elements of your new line that spur passion, so I'm interested in your mindset during the shift in your vision.
It seems like you're adapting what you've painted historically on 2 dimensions into 3 dimensions.
That is true.
Is that kind of how you would characterize it?
That's true. Okay, so if we start with that, like I'm really like my favorite artist is Kandinsky. Wassily Kandinsky. He was from the Bauhaus, very line, circle, color oriented, and I've always loved geometry and shapes. And so I kind of like mix those 2 together to create like this style that I've had ever since I was in college. And yes, I've traditionally done paintings like this, like I'm doing one on wood right now for Jen. And yes, that's very much inspired by like, modern Bauhaus art. But what I was doing this past year when I was exploring like art history was that I went to that workshop with okay, my brain just
the
went.
recent one, Danny
Yes.
Meisinger.
Yes, with Danny. Thank you. My brain just completely went off the rails.
I was like, you must have went to a different one because how can you forget
Yeah.
Danny Meisinger that you just?
I'm
went to?
sorry. Okay.
That's all right.
It's been a yogurt kind of day. So I recently went to that workshop, and we were talking about T-bowls and wabi-sabi and like all these things, and he was saying that he didn't make a T-bowl for the longest time because he didn't feel like he was worthy enough to make a T-bowl, and then he was finally like, you know what, you should just make one. And then he started, and now he's kind of progressed. And from that, I was thinking about it, and I really wanted to get a better feel of like ceramics history, specifically within form and within T-bowls and within like the Asian history of ceramics that I possibly could. And when I started doing that, I noticed while I was reading this one book specifically, it's called, sorry that I'm sniffling, I've been kind of sniffly. It's called, I don't know how to use this app. There we go. Ceramics and Modernity and Modernity. Modernity? Modernity? Modernity?
I'm trying to look it up. Modernity in Japan?
In Japan, yes.
Jeez.
How do you say that word?
I don't know. Modernity. Modernity. Let's just go with that.
Okay. Anyway, ceramics in Japan. And it's literally like this whole book in the very beginning is like, Japan stole this style from the Western country, and then they stole it from China, and then China stole this from Japan, and China stole this from Korea, and then Japan stole this from China, and then the Western, like, United States stole this from Japan, but then England stole this from China, and it's just like all of this completely, like, ridiculous, like, stealing of all these forms and shapes. And but I specifically started because I was like, I don't want to start making a tea bowl or something that has some sort of historical representation and not know the history behind it. But specifically, I don't want to appropriate something that I know nothing about. And so it was really important to me to, like, research that history and then kind of, like, make my conclusion from there. And I feel like I've come out with a product that stems, like, that has a lot of influences from, like, a tea bowl, but isn't a tea bowl, and you know,
it reminds me more of like a stemless wine glass.
Right. Like, I specifically didn't want to make, like, a wide tea bowl that, like, if somebody saw it, they would be like, oh, that's a tea bowl. I didn't want to do that. Same with the bowl. Same with the plate. Like, I wanted to make sure that it was something that, like, it's a shape that is used pretty commonly, I feel like, but I took the foot off of the base because I didn't want it to have that high foot that's pretty traditional within the Japanese culture and within the, like, more like Asian culture specifically. And, right. You know, I did a few things that I wanted to make sure I was cautious about, just because I felt like, you know, I wasn't making basic bitch pots anymore. You know, yeah. Like, I'm, like, stemming into this whole new world of, like, something that I'm going to be selling for $100. And I also didn't want to make a basic bitch, like, wine glass. Because then after, like, it was right between, after that workshop, I was like, I don't want to make something that looks like everything else that I've made that was $20, you know? I need to make something that has a little bit more complexity into the shape. It's a little bit more challenging for me to throw and stuff like that.
Right.
And but also I don't want to, like, stem into this long history of, like, something that's super important, you know, in the ceramics community, in the Asian ceramics community, and especially because I'm not Asian, you know.
Right.
And be disrespectful in that regard, and I hope that I've kind of, like, done that. But it after reading all of this stuff, I kind of came to this conclusion that it's such a complicated past. Like, there's such a complicated past to ceramics, and there's like, but specifically, it's such a teaching past. Like, you know, when Leach,
like apprentices and stuff like that?
Yeah, like apprentices and stuff like that. You know, when Leach went to Asia and then brought over, oh, I forget his name. The guy. Shit. What's his name?
You said Simon Leach?
Well, I know Simon Leach, or, yeah, like, when Leach brought over his friend from Japan, and they, like, started up pottery, like, a studio, they really stemmed off of each other, and there was a lot of, like, cultural, like, meshing that happened within that time. And so it's just, like, I guess what I kind of found is, at the end of the day, and, like, I was kind of thinking about it, and I was like, okay, what would the people back in the 1800s, 1850s think if you had this shape, you know, and you, like, made something that was, like, identical to their shape? And from reading this book, I was like, they would care if it was done perfectly. Like, they wouldn't
But
care that you...
if it was substandard, they wouldn't care.
Like, they would... What would matter to them is that it was done in the best way that it could be done. Because
Wait, they want it to be better and better, or they don't want it to be as perfect as you would make it because you are not them?
No, they would want it to be better and better. That's what I interpreted from the book, is that, like, you know, it was more important, like, if you're going to create something that was copying somebody else, it better be done well. like, you know, we don't really care if you take it, but we want you to make it good, you know? Like, it's a dishonor to make it poorly, in a sense. You know? There's still stuff that, like, I would never...
Would you consider, like, a ramen bowl to fall into that, where, like, you need to kind of know a little bit about... Like, I know nothing of ramen. I would just make a ramen bowl. I don't know about the proportions of it. I don't know about the function of it. I don't eat ramen. So, like, something like that, is that still commonplace, or is that something that could be...
I don't know.
In that realm of a form that you should probably know some about. Kind of like, I think of it like a tea bowl. Like, a ramen bowl seems kind of like a very specific function. Kind of like a tea bowl to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would make a ramen bowl and call it a ramen bowl. I would just call it a big bowl. You know?
Like where you do the bowl with the cutouts for the chopsticks and stuff like that.
Yeah, also, I think that that's super, super dumb. I'm going to say this. That putting holes in a bowl just seems unintelligent to me.
I put holes in my yarn bowl, but they're more for design.
You lose an inch of the bowl. An inch. From those holes.
You're saying because you cut the little slot out?
No,
you're saying liquid-wise.
Like, I think that cutting a slot out in the top is fine, but, like, putting two holes, like, an inch down so that the chopsticks can sit in it just seems like a spilling hazard to me.
They're not usually that low, but...
I feel like they are.
I feel like they're, like, half an inch, maybe.
Yeah, but at the base of the hole is usually an inch down.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're losing some function, and I feel like people that eat ramen, like, they fill that up. From what I've seen. Or
the ramen,
pho,
the broth is important. Yeah, I think that I probably wouldn't call it a ramen bowl.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm even reluctant to call my shallow bowls pasta bowls, because I'm like, I just call them shallow bowls. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that I would be reluctant to call it a ramen bowl, because unless I knew the history of a ramen bowl, like, really specifically, you know, and, like, delved into that history that was and like made a point to know it, you know.
Yeah.
I think that I didn't ever used to think that this was important at all, to, like, really know the history of your pieces, but I do now. I think that it is important. I think that Is
it about knowing the function of it and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the function,
the history of it as well.
The function, the history of the form, the history of when it, you know, traditionally what it is used for and stuff like that. It's just really good to know that kind of stuff. And I wasn't taught art history, like pottery history, very much, almost at all. And I would imagine that most people that are doing ceramics never really learned pot history. I feel
like the up and coming people that are doing it, because you don't have to go to school for pottery to do pottery, so
right.
You're not going through the prerequisite art history classes that you have to do. So you're not learning that unless you go out on your own and you have interest in that. Because personally for me, I hate history. Like, art history was the big snooze fest for me, so like, that does not entice me at all to research. So like, I went through some of those classes, but I did it because I had to. I have no interest in, like, that doesn't influence and, like, push me to want to do something specifically because I know the history of it. I'm more functional and, like, other influences, I guess. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting also is that I feel like a lot of the times people view copying a style specifically. I imagine most people view it in the top layer of a pot, you know,
Top
like
layer, what do you mean?
like the way it's painted or the way it's glazed or something like that, or like doing the
Okay.
sgraffito. I usually people focus on that as the copying of the item, and when I started doing research, I was actually more focused on the form of the item and not the top, which put it into a whole different perspective for me too.
Is it because you think it seems like the form would be the easier part to copy than the outside part, right?
Yeah, I think it's almost impossible not to copy some sort of a form.
Yeah. I mean, with what you can do with trimming, I mean, you could trim away as much. Like, you don't have to be super, super skilled to make a certain form that has certain proportions. Like, you can trim away a lot of that clay.
Totally.
And perfect it with your trimming.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like, yeah. History of form and history of style, I think, are two completely different things. And that should be noticed as well. And I think we have a lot more lenience on form as opposed to style. In regards of people's opinions of what is copied.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one form that I make that I guess could be considered like I'm an outsider making this is like a yarn bowl. Like, I don't knit.
Right.
I don't know much about this function. I do it because I got asked to do it from my mother-in-law like 6 years ago. I did it and I refined the shape and reached out to some places that are in that space and that medium, and they tell me their opinions about it, what their customers look for, and like I can adjust it a little bit, but I have the skill set to make it in clay. I don't know anything about the history of yarn bowls, the wooden yarn bowls, but I make them as a little subset of what I do because it's like fun to play around with, but
right,
I don't try to take it too seriously, but also like I'm open to feedback too, so
I think there's nothing wrong with that. And plus, I mean, we also have to determine, are you doing it for art or are you doing it for business too? That has to come into consideration, I feel like, as well.
Yeah. I think I'm in that aspect. I'm doing it for business of getting in front of customers that wouldn't normally see my stuff maybe, but also kind of bridging the like, hey, there's something more functional that you can use in clay that's not like drinking out of a mug. Yeah. You can get hours of enjoyment knitting and you can get enjoyment out of this bowl, but also like it's a fun thing for me to figure out how to carve it, and it slows me down in my process to like have to do the cutouts and stuff that I'm not heavy production on those, because I make like 6 at a time.
It's technically
and that
challenging.
Makes it fun for me.
Yeah, totally. It's a lot. It is a lot.
Our third host had to make an appearance here.
Yeah,
they were pretty quiet.
He's gone by twice today, I think.
Since we've been talking, not on the air, but
yeah.
There's a follow-up in here about we kind of touched on it, but feeling about someone rips you off, does it anger you or flatter you?
I think I'd probably be flattered.
Yeah. I think I'd be flattered too. The thing I go to is, I mean, you said it a little bit of, are they making like a couple pieces, or like I make in such high quantity and I've made the same things like over and over and over that like the amount of work they would have to do to get up to that level of production to like make an impact on my customer base, it would have to be massive to even have a effect on me. But also I make basic pitch pots, so but I don't know. I feel like there's so many customers out there that scarcity like is
there's
just a
so
non-issue.
many people in this world. So many people.
I mean, I get what you're talking about, like in your own vicinity, but also there's so many shows to do in that vicinity that I could potentially sell at. Depending on the location, obviously, but like I had a show this weekend. There were also 2 or 3 other shows this weekend. They could have been marketing to completely different like customers at the same show. Like,
ooh, here's a question. If you showed up at a show and somebody showed up with basically the exact same pots as you and they were 4 booths down, how would you feel?
I mean, I wouldn't feel negative or anything. These days I don't really get time to walk around and say hi to them, but if I noticed them, I would probably... I try to introduce myself to the other potters, so it's like, hi, I don't know you, I'm Ryan. Nice to meet you.
I have the exact same pots as you, 4 booths down.
I'm not going to say that. No, the whole thing is, if you accuse somebody, then you're you're both kind of in a weird mode there, because you're like accusing. Do you have evidence? Like, what's the point of doing that? Because you just seem like an ass. If you can't prove it, then you're digging into like archives of when did you first start this. I have documentation. Like, I just feel like you're being an ass. What's the point of? What's your? I would rather let the day play out. Like, if customers notice and they're like, hey, we just were over there, like, they have similar stuff, I'd be like, cool. Like,
I'm more handsome.
See who buys what. I don't know. I got a cool tropical shirt on. What do you think?
I have blue glasses.
I'm more like let the customers do what they want to do. If they want to buy from them and it's more affordable for what they want to buy, if it's a $25 mug versus my $32 mug and they like that better, then buy it. I have nothing against it. I say let the customers do what they will, and we'll see how it shakes out. What does it do? What are you gonna talk shit to the customer about the person that's 4 booths down from you?
Absolutely not.
No,
because we're not douchebags.
Yeah. I don't know. What would you do in that scenario? Would you have any course of action, or would you just...
It would become one huge giant joke to me. If a customer came up and was like, "Yo, the 4 booths down has the exact same pots," I'd be like, "Yeah, but I bet I can sell them better." It would probably become this like huge joke. It's funny because in Leavenworth, all 3 of the photographers have basically the exact same photos.
They're all landscape photos or something?
Mm-hmm. And they're all, everybody has a big Kolchak. Everybody has that's a mountain, by the way. Everybody has like a big Mount Rainier photo, and everybody, there's very specific photos. And they all sell really well. Like, it doesn't really matter. They're like, it's all about the way you sell it, not what you got.
Yeah. It feels like photographs would be harder because, like, that's everybody's mountain.
It is.
Anybody can take a photograph at this time of day with this
Yeah, and, like, Marshall won't put pictures up on a website that are, like, really big because people will copy them. And he's, like, really upset when people, like, copy his work and stuff. So he has to, like, put a huge watermark on it and stuff. But, no. They all have their own, like, style, per se, of taking pictures. But they all pretty much have the same stuff. There's only so many mountains that are worth taking photographs of in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
But, I'm sure if you're a photographer listening to this, you're like, yes, like, everybody takes the same pictures. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that it hasn't happened to us. We've never had anybody totally steal our complete and utter, like, design.
I feel like it's way more. You're way more. Maybe I'm just not as attached to the pieces, but I feel like you're way more attached if your process is way more intense and you're more, like, you hear some of that. I've spent 15 years coming up to this point of what I'm making. I'm not just going to tell you the answers. you have to go through
Yeah.
that process to get there too. And some people
Yeah.
would say it as like, I'm not going to take that away from you, as in like that's your experience and your journey to go along, and like that's where a lot of the like passion and whatever goes into it. But you know, hey, it's up to anybody to tell their secrets if they want to, and if they don't
Totally.
want to, like, don't feel bad about it.
I'll be honest though, when I started doing this whole this whole new style, I'm gonna be honest. When people ask me questions, I am a lot less liberal in my answers. Like I still tell them, but
Is it keeping it vague, or is it
yeah, I keep it a
just
little bit
not
more vague.
telling them exactly what products you're using, or
I just keep it a little bit more vague when I answer, and I think it's just because, well, partly it's because I'm not finished, like totally, with how I want them to be, but also another part of it is that, like, it's, as far as I know, there's very few people that are doing the things that I'm doing, and so it's like this, you know, I mean, you never know, maybe there's like a billion people doing what I'm doing, but it's like an experience that I kind of like want to have, at least for the first year. Be like, yeah, I'm the only one doing this. And then after that, I can be fine with it.
with sharing it?
Yeah, probably.
Because then you're like off to the races?
Probably. Or just because I can't hold it in for that long.
It also feels a little bit iffy when you give out answers to things that you're not entirely like 100% like positive about, right?
Mm,
Because you feel like you're an authority to give answers about certain things, right?
yeah.
And you're like, this is what I did. And
This
then you
is
feel
what
like
I did. Good
Yeah.
luck. Good luck to you.
Yeah. I mean, I recorded I had an issue with my carve mugs, right? I had the like weird
Yeah.
things happening to it, and it was interesting because I got good results from doing something in the kiln, or doing something and the pots came out good, and all I did was like wipe the bisqueware with a sponge and like clean it off, and I thought that was the bee's knees. I thought that's what fixed it, and I recorded this whole IGTV video like explaining this is what I did, this is how I fixed it, and then I did the same thing with like 6 more pots. And I had to, shelf that because that wasn't right. Like, if I put that out there of this is how you fix this problem, it was incorrect. And I felt like I knew exactly what the answer was, but it wasn't right. So it's like, I get what you're saying about not putting it out there when, like, you're not sure if that's, like, the perfect way,
Yeah. It's tricky. Information, man. Information.
Has anyone ever accused either of you of overstepping with their ideas? No. Me neither.
No. Except for Ryan Reich, when he said it wasn't my idea. Swirls weren't my
You
thing.
didn't invent swirls, Becca?
No, damn it. No,
Do you think
I
at
haven't.
a point you just we're just so far down from, like, let's say, like, ancient, like those books that you're reading about Japan, like 1800s, and I don't even know how old those books are about, but
They're from like 1890s. This is modern Japan, so it's not like
Yeah.
super late.
do you think that we just get so far past that, like, in years, that just isn't even a thought in our mind because there's just so many things have been made up to this point that you just don't even think that,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I'm making stuff that has been made.
Yeah, I think so. What is that? Like, somebody said that there is nothing new in this world, as opposed, like, when it comes to art. There is no new art. Everything is stolen. And what is also the other one says, like, it was like good artists.
God, I feel like I was thinking that about that a little bit throughout
Yeah,
this.
it was
Is
like
it good artists copy, great artists
great
steal?
artists steal. Good artists copy, great artists steal. Yeah, I mean, like, there's just nothing original in this world anymore. And I think that the most important thing that we can do is have respect for the history of the pieces that we are trying to make. And that's the only thing you can do, is just have respect for what you're trying to achieve, you know? Yeah, I mean, and as far as, like, you know, appropriation goes, like, man, I thought that when I, like, start, and I'm still researching, I still, like, pick up the book and read it when I have a minute, and I was so surprised. Like, I had no idea that when I went in, I was thinking, oh, you know, and I was specifically interested in Asian history within ceramics, and how that related to, like, how, you know, like, how if we're copying what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. And I was so surprised at this, like, just, like, they had no shame back then. No shame at all. They were like, nah.
Are they talking about individuals in there, or are they just talking about a collective time frame?
It was more like
artists?
styles and stuff. Like,
styles.
Like, when Japan came over to, I think it was Japan, when they came over to the United States for the World Fair in Chicago, they, like, stole Korea's, like, whole style and, like, brought it over, and everybody was like, wow. And then they, like, came back, and, like, it's just, like, amazing how, and they just, like, flip-flopped from one country to the next country, and how they, you know, moved. And, like, even Western European, like, you know, bone china was, like fine china. The people that mastered fine china was actually England, and, like, they were the ones that did that, and they actually came to the and then I believe, I could very much be wrong, but I believe that they came over to Japan, and they were kind of, like, teaching them the ways. And then Japan got, like, after that, Japan and China got really, really, really focused on techniques and education, and so they created these colleges on, like, techniques. So, like, there was a time, like, back in the 1800s, Japan, China, Korea, I believe, were all manufacturing. So it wasn't art. Ceramics was not art. It was just, we're gonna make these pieces, people are gonna buy them, we're gonna, like, you know, and that's just how it is. We're gonna, like, pound out these pieces. And then like, I want to say, like, in 1910, maybe, like, early 1900, then they were like, oh, we could potentially be on the same level as painters in the regard of, like, how pottery is, and, like, we can get creative with this, and we can start painting on the pieces and making things on pieces. And so then it became, like, an actual art.
Yeah, and art, like, on something that happens to be functional.
Right, art on
or
something.
Or it was historically functional. And
right, and then they started looking into their histories and looking at, like, the art and kind of, like, copying their history in that regard, and, like, doing the pictures on the pots and stuff like that. And then you know, Art Nouveau and stuff like that, like, doing different styles. And then it's kind of like, and so that's where, like, you know, the wabi-sabi tea bowl and all that stuff kind of comes from, is more of, like, a historical or a artistic side. And then they got into, like, these insanely technical colleges, and they, like, did these colleges, and they had to learn everything. Like, they were called ceramic engineers. Like, they had to learn everything.
Ooh, imagine getting a degree in ceramic engineering.
Yeah, and, like, they learned, like, all the different chemicals, all the different firing processes, like, everything. And so it was like, you know, I remember learning in art history how, like, the painting, there was, like, a painting academy, essentially, where you had to, like, be in, and it was only men that could be in it or whatever, I don't know, but, like, it was back in the days. And like,
where was that?
It was in Europe, where you had to like be in this academy in order to basically make any money painting, you know, and then like you went to college and you like learned all the cool stuff and like the very specific painting styles and stuff, and that's basically what Asia did with their schools for ceramics, and that's why like they weren't a leader per se in the ceramics industry until that point when they started like.
Well, I
really
mean, a
taking
lot
it
of
seriously.
places probably had like those were the only places you could get the resources to actually make that product. It's like nowadays we encourage the individual potter and the home studio and stuff like that. Like that probably wasn't as commonplace.
Yeah.
Back in the day, like it just wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, and they started.
What do you think? Looking back on like 2000s pottery, the Instagram, it's gonna be called like the Instagram era or something like that.
Instagram
the
era.
social media era or something.
Oh man, I know. I was thinking about that recently and how like when we look at art history and there's like very specific people within the books, like who of modern ceramics, modern art will be in the history books.
Yeah.
Like Banksy.
That's not ceramics, but yeah, you're talking about like modern artists.
But like modern art, like that's the only one that I can really think of. I'm sure there's more that I could think of like in a week, but and what like Robert Lugo without wax. The
Lugo.
Robert Lugo. Like he'll probably be, and I'm sure there's
plenty
more that will.
Yeah, it's like, are those gonna be in books? Like, are there gonna be books in like 60 years that people are reading textbook? Like,
yeah, like will there be books?
They're gonna put all the Instagram era stuff in like a book and showing screenshots of Instagram photos. I don't know. No, it'll be like finer art stuff. I mean, it's not gonna be Instagram photos.
Yeah.
But I'm like, how would they characterize this time that we're in right now? It's like everybody shared all their stuff on social media.
All at once. And it was overwhelming. Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be a lot of like bright color stuff. Lots of eye-catching bright color. Catch your eye as you're scrolling.
Tortoise. I think Tortoise will be in the history books. Even though maybe he doesn't deserve it. I think, well, in the last like many years, you know, obviously, unfortunately and obviously probably like Paul Soldner, who has done great things for ceramics but terrible things for humankind, and he was like super misogynist and terrible human being, but from what I hear.
Is that actually what is your wheel actually from that? I know he made a bunch of ceramic equipment historically, but
yeah, my wheel he made. Yeah. Somebody said once it was probably like one that he made in his garage because it's so different from everybody else's. But like, you know, what's the tea bowl that I have that I bought that was way too expensive in
Tom Coleman. He's gonna go down in history books for sure. He's done more for ceramics than almost any potter. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what outside of the ceramics world versus inside the ceramics world. You know, it's interesting because we're so embedded and we know so many ceramic artists, whether it's through social media or just peers.
Yeah.
That you kind of get numb to just the number of things you see.
Yeah.
That it's like, what is impactful for the wider audience? That if you were to say, this would categorize ceramics of this time period.
Okay. So if we were going to say somebody who, like, has hit the world by storm that doesn't know pottery, who would it be?
I mean, one that I see that is getting a lot of attention would be like Justin Rothschink's work, because he had all the work that's like political pottery. That's a lot of the for the times, and then it's got, you know, the beautiful work, but it's also got the politicians and stuff on it. I feel like that in the last couple of years has got some traction with people that are outside the ceramics world.
Yeah.
But
Oh, here's one that's super controversial. Ray Dunn.
Ray Dunn.
Ray Dunn.
Like, is that actually sold in like a store, or is that? I don't know Ray Dunn stuff. I assume it's the white stuff with the black words and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The white work with the black words.
Yeah, and she's this lady from California that just started making shitty pots, and they
So she was actually a ceramic artist.
Yeah. She just makes like little like pinch pots.
Oh.
Or like slab work.
Wait, is that her name, or that's just the brand name?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's her name. And then like China picked it up, and she like started mass producing them. It was just like hit it. And now all the white women in America, they flock to the Home Goods to get the Ray Dunn attire.
The age of the mugs with the sayings on them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Damn. Yeah, she's one. But it's like, that's so funny, right? Because like she stopped making them and then continue. I think Hammerly is probably one that's like reached outside the ceramics demographic.
Yeah. Do you think someone like Cherico that for his, I think just the reach of his like world record stuff, that was like 6 or 7 years ago now.
Yeah.
But like I feel like people still know him outside of just ceramic artists.
I feel like his Galaxy mugs were like, that's what made him really famous. Those Galaxy mugs.
Yeah.
You know? Because I remember getting a post from one of my friends. It was on like BuzzFeed or something. And she was like, look at this. I was like, oh yeah, cool. I think that was like the first time I ever heard of him, actually. Yeah, that was like 6 years ago. Yeah, it's crazy.
Because being in the space, you don't really know what's impacting the larger. Because like I'm focused on making my stuff and like figuring out how to cater, like sell to my audience, rather than looking at who's the big influential people within the space that transcend just potters.
Yeah. Crazy. We live in a crazy world right now, I feel like. Nobody's happy, but everybody's here.
Nobody's happy? You're not happy? I'm happy.
I know you're happy.
The sentiment feels like there's negativity and like unhappiness everywhere. But I don't know that that's a true barometer of what it actually is if you look at people on the whole.
Yeah. You know, what's really funny is actually like Gravesco really has reached a whole like sector of people that don't know pottery at all, but nobody knows that it's her because we private label for a company.
Yeah.
And the person that's our customer won't tell anybody who her potter is because she thinks that they're going to copy her. So, that's funny. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But some of it is just people that aren't in pottery, they just look at, this is the bowl that I use for my cereal. They don't think about like, how did this come to be? how is this made? What goes into the
Oh yeah, I
intricacies
never
of this?
thought of.
They could just think of this simplicity of I use this for my morning oatmeal,
Yeah, I
and
would have.
that's the end of it. They think it's beautiful.
Yeah, like growing up, I didn't even know anything apart from Corelle. Like Corelle dishware and plastic dishware from Walmart was my life. Like we had no handmade mugs, like all China stuff. My mom has a really pretty cool collection of like antique teacups that are China teacups. But yeah, I had no even idea what pottery really was until college.
Yeah. I feel like I grew up with, you have a lot of the cups and plates and stuff that you've had for years. We had those colorful Tupperware plates that were like square-ish, but they were like brightly colored. Like we had like purple ones and yellow ones, and you dishwash them and they like, or you microwave them and they like bow in the middle over the years.
Did you have the okay, this is kind of like off subject, but did you, I want to say these were Tupperware, but I'm not sure. Did you have the paper plate holders that were like
the
solid?
like plastic things that would like your paper plates would snap into it?
No, like we had these plates, and maybe they were just plates that my mom always put paper plates on, but we had these blue and red plates, and we would always put paper plates on top of them and like take them camping and stuff because like because my mom
sounds
would
like
only,
a charger kind of like you would...
Yeah, it's kind of like a charger, but like my mom would always only buy the cheap paper plates because we were a paper plate family.
Oh, so
because,
the paper plate didn't like rip or like fall when you're carrying your plate of food.
Right, because she got like the Costco pack that was like 7,000 plates, and they are like the ones that you could rip like super easy. Like we're not talking like
You're not talking Dixie here.
Yeah,
talking...
Dixie was... I didn't have a Dixie plate until I went to college. Like that was way too expensive. And so, like, we put them on these, like, blue plates, blue and red. And I remember there was, like, only 4 red ones or something. And I would never use a red one. I could only use blue. Because I'm weird. And I don't know. But...
You chose to use the blue, is what you're saying.
Chose to only use the blue ones. But yeah, I think they were Tupperware, though.
I don't remember those.
I love Tupperware. I was a Tupperware kid.
But yeah, I mean, we used the same plates for years because that's what we had. And they probably got inherited from somebody else if they were the... you said Corelle? Is that? No. Corelle. Are those the ones that we had, like, white plates with the, like, brownish border that was, like, decorative?
Yeah.
Is that
that's
Corelle?
that one. Yeah, like the really thin glass ones.
Yeah. So, that's what we had for years.
Yep.
Handmade was not really a thing in my house when I was growing up.
Yeah, and my mom would never buy plates that were too heavy for a kid to carry. And we had to carry 5, so... They had to be plastic or light.
You mean a kid to carry the stack of plates to the table to set the table kind of thing?
Yeah, because they weren't going to set the table.
Gotcha.
Parents don't set tables. Kids do.
There you go. Teaching them some responsibility.
Parents also don't get their own ice cream. Kids do.
Give me some ice cream.
Yeah, my mom would she'd sit in her chair at night, at dinner, after dinner, and then she'd be like, "Hey, can you go get me some ice cream?" And I swear to God, if I protested, she'd be like, "I brought you into this world and you were here to give me ice cream. Go get me ice cream." That was our job. It was 100%.
Is that going to be your job when they're older and they're going to be like, "Becca, I need some ice cream"?
Probably. I mean, it still is, if I'm home visiting.
They'll ask you.
Yeah.
Or do you get up and you're like,
I just
"Hey,
do
you
it.
Want some ice cream?"
Yeah, I just do it. It's not
they
even...
They trained you.
Oh, yeah. My mom also had a whistle.
A whistle?
For,
dinner time?
No.
Go
just,
outside,
if we went
time?
to the... Yeah. If we went to the zoo or something, she would whistle, and we'd have to come running. Like, and also in the grocery store, she'd like whistle like with her mouth, not like with the actual
Oh,
whistle.
okay. I was like, is she carrying a whistle or is that just a mouth whistle? Okay.
No, like one time she whistled at the end of an aisle, and my brother turned around and started walking towards her, and this guy saw her, and he was like, "Wow, that's amazing."
You got that kid trained. Would she do the like
yeah.
that?
Yeah, like that.
Oh man,
I can't whistle.
I never learned how to do that. That's a talent that I wish I had.
Oh, that's what she... Yeah, like that. It was so funny. We were trained like little soldiers. Yep.
Wow.
Anyway, we've gotten very far away from ceramics.
Claygiarism.
Claygiarism.
That's great.
Wait, maybe I'll make a mug that says this is Claygiarism. And make it a MUG mug. Just a regular basic ass mug. That's white. With
yeah.
a decal. Claygiarism. You've committed plagiarism. And they can be mugs that you share with all the people that you feel like they've committed plagiarism.
It's like a trophy, but not a good trophy.
Yeah, like a bad trophy.
Like you don't want it.
No. Congratulations, you've committed plagiarism. I love it. Perfect.
Anything else?
Oh, we were going to say really quick, we're going to start a Patreon, and we don't know what's going to be on there right away, but we're just going to set it up, and if you want to support us, you can, and we'll put it in the link in our bio or on our website. I think we should get a link tree for our bio, but yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I've been considering the link tree for my own Instagram. But yeah, we've come up with some ideas offline about what we want to offer.
Yeah.
And I think we've got some good ideas in the works. But we also don't want to kill ourselves trying to give us way too much work that we're overcommitting and then we're under-delivering. So we're trying to figure out what the right mix is for you all that are going to help us and support us, and then also give you something that you enjoy and gives you a little more than you can just hear from us once a week through audio. So
yeah. Also, I forgot to tell you this. This was something that was exciting that happened. I got a ruler on my finger.
Yeah, I saw you got you got 2 tattoos though, didn't you?
Yeah, I got a tattoo on my shoulder that's "do not cut above this line" for my hair. So it's a line.
Wait, does it drape over the front of your... Wouldn't it be better to have that on your back?
Well, that would be kind of awkward to be like, put my shirt down so you can see it to the hairdresser. No.
It's more like you walk up to her and she's like, what do you want to do today? And then you just like pull your shirt down and you're like, don't cut above this. and so Val Flint, Jack, her son, did that, and then he did this ruler on my finger, and it's 4.5 inches, and it's perfect. Nice. Wait, does it go all the way to your fingertip?
Yeah, but it's the fingertip is really hard ink to get in there, so it didn't really stay.
It's probably kind of calloused and stuff, right, on that part of your finger.
Yeah, so I might like try and get in there with a stick and poke, but I doubt it'll work. And we'll see. Maybe I can find a tattoo artist around here that can go over it. Or the next time
Did he do some of your other ones too?
Yeah, he did the a bonsai tree on my forearm. That's a stick and poke. He didn't do anything.
I don't know that I've seen that before.
Yeah.
Maybe I just haven't noticed.
So
nice.
That one's cool. What's really cool about that one is that Larry Bruning, who was my teacher, loved bonsai trees. And so
tribute to cool. LB there.
Tribute to LB. So yeah. Yeppity yep. Yeppity yep yep yeppers. We have nothing else.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Yeah.
Thanks for the support.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We really appreciate it, and we're having so much fun. If you want to follow us individually on Instagram, you totally can. Ryan's Instagram handle is @RDCeramics, and mine is 5 Lines Pottery. That's the number 5. We would love to hear from you, and don't forget to write us a review on our podcast. We read every single one of them, and we totally appreciate them. They help us out an awful lot, and they also put smiles on our faces. I hope you guys continue to listen, and we love you. Thanks. Bye.